by a bent line, by a straight line, by a crooked line. The Crooked Path, a podcast for modern cunning folk with Peter Pagan.
Hello and welcome to The Crooked Path. My name is Peter Pagan, and this week we're going to be taking a look at whether witchcraft is a religion or a practice. And there's a very good reason why I chose that as my topic this week. It's because everyone else is talking about it, and it's no surprise to you who've been listening to me for a long time that I'm an opinionated son of a bitch, and I have very strong feelings on this. But I'm going to try and look at this calmly and rationally, and give some good arguments for why I am right and everyone else is wrong. Well, not everyone's wrong, because some people agree with me, but really where we need to start is looking at what is witchcraft. Now, the word witchcraft is an old, usually assumed to be derived from an old Anglo-Saxon word, Wicca-craft or witchcraft, and it refers to the indigenous shamanic practice of the Germanic people. The Saxons being a Germanic tribe who conquered Britain after the Celts. There's a long line of people who conquered Britain, so they think they're special because they beat us up for a while. There. It's basically, it was just their turn, and they in turn got beaten up by the Normans, and the rest, as they say, is quite literally history. But the word witchcraft comes from Anglo-Saxon practice, and so really, if you're a purist, we're looking at Anglo-Saxon shamanic magical practice. Over the millennia, it's been broadened to be generic British practice. In Germany, they switched over to the much more German-sounding Hexencraft, and which is, of course, the predecessor of the Hex Doctors of the Pennsylvania Deutsch, but that's a totally different story. But generally speaking, witchcraft is the indigenous magical practice of the British people. And in this modern day and age, it also includes the elements of Celtic magical practice that got absorbed by the invading Saxons. And then the Normans came and they added their bit, their Ponzi French ideas, with their degree system and stuff like that, and it all got very strange after that. But ultimately, that's what witchcraft is. It's the shamanic practice of the British Isles. So what is Wicca, you may be asking yourself? Isn't Wicca and witchcraft two words for the same thing? A lot of people will tell you that it is, and I will very vehemently tell you it is not. Wicca is a mystery tradition that was started by Gerald Gardner. And depending on who you believe, and I'm inclined to more or less believe what he said himself, based on the fragments that he received when initiated into a coven in the New Forest many, many, many years ago. Filled in the missing bits with various other sources that were available at the time: Freemasonry, Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley, Theosophy, some of his own Malaysian studies, and who knows where else he pulled information from. But he basically plugged the gaps and built something that is coherent and holistic and works pretty well, in all honesty. However, the one thing that Wicca has that is very, very different from witchcraft is that it is a religion. It is an earth-based religion, goddess-centered, and whereas in modern times a lot of people insist you have to be a pagan to be a witch, a polytheist, Wicca is actually more of a duotheism. It's a god and a goddess who are seen as the male and female aspects of the one, the creative principle of the universe. And consequently, isn't quite the same thing as polytheism. A lot of people forget that, but in its modern incarnation, Wicca has become pretty much duotheistic, and it is very much a religion. It has a priesthood. It has rites of passage. It has community events. It takes care of all the things that a religion takes care of. So what's the difference between a practice and a religion? I mean, are we just bandying about semantics, playing word games, or is there actually a real difference? Well, it is said that you can practice magic whether you believe in God or gods or not. You can be an atheist and quite happily practice magic. However, there is generally a pantheon of deities associated with any form of magical practice, whether they are seen as incarnate beings sitting on a cloud somewhere, or whether they are seen as archetypes or manifestations of our own psyche, is up to the practitioner. Traditionally speaking, witchcraft does come with a set of deities attached, but they are very rarely actually specified as to being specific gods. You have the Horned Lord, the Master of Magic, you have Dame Fate, you have the Black Goddess, the White Goddess, some versions have a Grey Lady as well, and there are various regional names attached to these, but generally speaking they're often referred to by titles such as Old Horny, or the Devil, or the Deil if you're Scottish. Get out, stop messing about on the Deil, take the hindmost. It's a very generic pantheon. It's basically roles that are fulfilled. Religions, on the other hand, tend to have very specific pantheons. Either it's Father, Son and Holy Ghost if you're a Christian, or well, if you're a Mormon Christian, it's Father and Son and Holy Ghost. You have to be very specific. If you're a Celtic, Welsh Celtic religionist, then it's going to be the characters found in the Mabinogion. That applies to me. My spirituality is Welsh Celtic, so it's Gwydion, Cerridwen, Llw, Blodeuwedd, Arian, Rod, Rhiannon, and Bran, and all the rest of them. And if you're a heathen, then it's going to be Odin, Thor, Loki, Freyr, and all the other stomping around with large tankards full of mead and throwing axes at each other. Well, everyone has to have a hobby. Ultimately, though, if you really want to know the definitive answer to whether witchcraft is a religion or a practice, look at some of the classical brands of witchcraft. Perhaps the best known variety of witchcraft there has ever been, Strega, the Italian Strega, who would go out onto the moors in the middle of the night and call upon Diana. And then every Sunday they would be sitting in the pews in church, because each and every one of them was a very devout Catholic. By all means, the Catholic Church, if they knew what they got up to on Saturday night, would consider them to be heretical, at the very least. But they were devout churchgoers, they paid their tithe, they obeyed the rules of the church, they attended Mass, they attended confession, and they did all the other stuff that all the other Catholics did. And then they went out and summoned the older gods to work their magic. And sometimes they worked their magic with the saints and the pantheon of the Catholic Church. Working with the saints was to this day, you'll find old Italian ladies who, when they can't find something, will have a statue of St. Anthony that they'll put upside down in the closet and refuse to put it back the way it should be until the missing object has been returned. So it's the mafia approach to religion, if you like. That really clinches it for me. whatever my feelings are, historically, witchcraft has been practiced by people who follow devoutly the religion of their region. And in the Western world, for most people, the standard religion of where you live is Christianity. So most witches historically were Christian. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, people who say you can't be a witch and a Christian. And it's really important to remember that. The other thing you have to remember is that the word witchcraft has been bandied around a lot by missionaries. A lot of people get up in arms when they hear about people being beaten for witchcraft in India or in Africa or in other parts of the world. And whilst anybody being mistreated for their beliefs is a thing to be worried about and to be concerned about, you do have to take into account the use of the word witchcraft doesn't always mean that what they're practicing is witchcraft. A lot of these people are practicing their indigenous magic, and the missionaries that came blasting through their country at some point in the last 100, 200, 300 years labelled it as witchcraft. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the same thing as what we do. Also, that same label of witchcraft has been attached to some seriously malevolent magical practices. So don't defend somebody just because the news calls what they do witchcraft. There are people in Nigeria and other places in Africa who are harvesting human organs to work witchcraft. And 90% of that magic that they are using those human organs and human body parts for, and human blood and skulls and bones and teeth and eyes and whatever, is malevolent. That isn't witchcraft by our definition, but everyone calls it witchcraft. So you have to be really careful. Not everything that's labelled witchcraft is witchcraft. And what is witchcraft isn't a religion, it's a spiritual practice that is often expressed through a religion. And the really big clue about it is that religions tend to be orthodoxies. You have orthodox religions. In other words, there is a set of beliefs that you have to believe. You're defined by what you believe. It's an orthodoxy. It's the standard belief. You know, the Catholic Church has the creed. The
Apostles' Creed.
Yes, the Apostles' Creed. The other religions have equivalents. You know, we believe. You know, I still remember doing the creed in school. We believe in one God. Blah blah blah. And it's that big word. We believe. Witchcraft is an orthopraxy. We are defined by what we do. We work shamanic, sabbatic magic. What we believe is largely irrelevant. Ask three witches what they believe and you'll get 5 different answers, because we formulate our own beliefs to fit our experiences. And it is our practice that unites us and defines us. So for me, witchcraft is and always will be a practice that may or may not be practiced through the medium of a religion. Hopefully that makes sense. So Wicca is a religion that uses witchcraft, although there are Wiccans, believe it or not, who do not. Wiccans who don't believe in magic, don't believe in working magic. They take the Wiccan reed, "and it harm none, do as thou wilt." They take that harm none part so seriously that they won't work magic, because you can't work magic without manipulation. And that's harm. And so they say, no magic for me, thank you. So they are Wiccan, but they are not witches, because they don't practice witchcraft. And witchcraft is always a practice. It is often expressed through a religion. In the old days, it would be whatever religion you happen to have in your region. In modern times, we have the luxury of being able to pick and choose. A lot of us tend to be pagan, or at least nominally pagan. a lot of people I know who seriously practice witchcraft are actually sitting there and wondering whether they should be calling themselves pagan, because the word pagan has changed in meaning so much, almost as much as witchcraft has. A lot of people, and I've been known to do this from time to time myself as well, throw all the words out of the window and just say, I'm a practitioner. That's why some of the good old-fashioned names of witchcraft can be very handy. The old persuasion, the crooked path, the nameless art, the older faith. They'll take a bit more explaining if somebody actually wants to know what you're into, but they also avoid the W word, which these days, I will hide behind the word Wicca, because 9 times out of 10, if someone asks what you do and you say Wicca, they make a whole bunch of assumptions, and most importantly, they don't ask you any more questions. They leave you alone, because they assume that you're a harmless crank. Or they assume that you're follow an earth-based religion. They assume that you do all the things that the local Wiccans do. So I will quite happily nod and smile when someone says, "Are you Wiccan?" because it stops the stupid questions. But there are times when I will avoid using any really descriptive term, and I'm just a practitioner, or I'm just me. I just do that thing that I do. So that's really it for this week. Obviously a nice short episode. We're ramping up to full production. I am happy to confirm that Raven will be joining us on camera in a week or two with her wart cunning section, so we will be doing that again. I'm looking forward to that. And starting next week we will have the old structure again, but in video format. And I'm going to be starting to beat people up until they agree to come and be interviewed by me as well. So this is probably the last just me sitting in front of the camera and blabbering at you. And it'll be me blabbering in sections instead of that, just blabbering generally from here on in. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you tune in next time. Take care.
By a bent line, by a straight line, by a crooked line. The Crooked Path, a podcast for modern cunning folk with Peter Pagan.